Welcome to week 5 of 16 weeks of SATs. This week we're going to be getting stuck into short multiplication, also known as the grid method. Now these questions crop up in your SATs questions all of the time. They're very simple, and sometimes we can jump between last week's lesson of using known facts and partition and jottings, or using this week's strategy of a short multiplication, which is a more formal strategy. Super easy to master, using your times tables, facts, and again, it's all about how we lay the question out. So we're going to dive straight into it. Let's get stuck into it and start learning. So let's get straight into the questions themselves. Now, the likelihood is that we've encountered and we know how to undertake a column addition. So we see a multiplication, 4 times 73, and our natural instinct is to carry out a column multiplication, or more commonly known as a grid method, okay? Because we have the grids, we're going to use the grid to multiply and use our known facts to answer the question. Very, very straightforward. So again, if we wanted to do that, there's two options here. Ideally, if we're confident, we can drop into our strategies from last week and know that 4 times 30 is going to be 120, and know that 4 times 7, because essentially this is what we're going to do in the grid method. 4 times 7, is 28. So we would have 28, and we would add them together to get 148. And we can see that quite easily. Now, obviously, with more difficult questions, we may want to drop onto something more reliable. Now, again, with the grid method, we're going back to understanding place value. So the easiest thing to do first is obviously to write in the number that we are multiplying, put our multiplication symbol in, and then straight away, if we think about place value, we've got our ones, our tens. There are no hundreds, but you can clearly see the ones column, the tens column, and the hundreds column. So we've got the ones, the tens, and the hundreds. Again, so we're going to work from our ones column, so that's where we would write the times 4. Okay. Now from there, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we always start in the ones column. So we're going to work in this column here, and then we're going to actively work to the left. Okay, so we're going to do the ones column first, then we're going to do the tens, and obviously there's no hundreds. So at this point, it's very, very straightforward, and it's called short multiplication because essentially a little bit like addition when we're doing, we're carrying 2, for example, from the tens column, we're actually maybe carrying 20. So it's a short abbreviated version. So again, 7 times 4, I'll just get a blue pen back up. 7 times 4 is 28. So we would put the 8 in, carry the 2. All right. Then we would do 4 times 3. So we've done 4 times 7 is 28. So the 8 goes in here, and the 20 is carried. So that goes and sits here. Sometimes we'll have people that put it down here, whichever you feel more comfortable with, really. 4 times 3 is 12. Add the 2 is 14. So again, the 4 would go in, the 1 would carry from the 14, and essentially because there's nothing else to do, the 1 just drops down. So we would end up with 148. Let's take a look at another question. So again, we've got 7 times 63. If you want to pause the video, go ahead. Again, with this question, naturally some people will feel comfortable dropping straight into a grid method, and that's absolutely fine. Some people will see 7 times 63 and think, well, I know what 7 times 60 is. I know what 7 times 3 is. I can just make some jottings and work that out. We're going to run through the strategy. So we're multiplying 63. So we're going to write that straight in. We're doing a multiply, and we're multiplying by 7. Now again, you don't need to make these notes about the columns, but because we've got 63, we've got ones and tens, and we're multiplying by 7. So again, we would start off in the ones column, and we would do 7 times 3 to get our answer. So 7 times 3 is 21. So of the 21, the 1 is going to go here, and we're going to carry the 2. Or carry the 20. So 7 times 3 is 21. So the 1, carry the 2. So you can clearly see we've got 20 here. There's the 21 and how it's moved over. Or regrouped to a certain extent. So now we've done 7 times 3, we can do 7 times 6. So 7 times 6 is 42. 7 times 6 is 42. Add 2 is 44. So again, we would put the 4 in, carry the 4. There's no other calculation to do, so anything remaining just drops down. And we very quickly get ourselves into 441 as an answer. So let's take a look at another question. So this time we've got 6 times 59. Now again, some of you might be quite comfortable dropping into doing 6 times 50 and knowing that that's 300. 6 times 9 is 54 and then adding them together. Some of you might also spot that 59 is very close to 60. So you could have done 6 times 60 and got 360 and then took away 6 to get your answer. So there's always lots and lots of ways to carry out arithmetic problems, and ultimately it's about getting the right answer. So again, if we want to use a grid method, which is what this video is about, obviously we're going to present this like this. So we're multiplying 59, we're multiplying by 6, and then we're going to do 6 times 9 is 54. So we would put the 4 in, carry the 50 or the 5 into the next column. Then we're going to do 6 times 5, fairly straightforward, is 30. Add the 5 is 35. All right. So again, we're going to carry that over. So 6 times 5, add the 5 is 35. So let's write that in. So we've got the 5, carry the 3, and then obviously there's no more calculations to do, so the 3 is going to drop down, and we would get 354. Now again, let's imagine we've got the blue SATS arithmetic box. We must make sure that that gets transferred into here for us to get the mark. So a slight change in the questions, or something slightly a little bit more difficult. So we've now got 7 times a 3-digit number. So we've got our 1s, our 10s, and our 100s. Now nothing is actually going to change here. All that really happens is we have an extra calculation, because we'll do 7 times 6, 7 times 3, which is 7 times 30, and then we'll do 7 times 1. Okay, so essentially there's just an extra step, and nothing really changes. So again, we're going to lay out 136, making sure it's nice and clear and presentable, multiply by 7. And at this point, we're making sure that we're going to do the process of 7 times 6, starting in the 1s column, then we'll do 7 times 3, and then we'll do 7 times 1, and that will give us the answer. So again, if we just drop back into the question, 7 times 6 is 42, so we put the 2 in and carry the 4 out of that number. 7 times 3, so again, we've done 7 times 6 is 42. Now we're doing 7 times 3 is 21. So 7 times 3 is 21. Add the 4 is 25. So we're going to drop that in. So the 5 would go in there. We would carry the 2. And now the extra step, in the previous questions, we didn't have anything here. So that this would just drop down. But now we've got 7 times 1 is very straightforward, is 7. So 7 times 1 is 7. Add the 2 is 9. So very simple, and we can just write that in. Now again, if we imagine that we had a SATS answer box, that number would need transferring into this box for us to get the mark. And that's how we do that one. And now the final example from me. And the only difference here again is we've just got a larger number to deal with. So just because we're seeing larger numbers, I don't want anyone to panic. We just drop into the strategy and think this is really straightforward. So again, presentation, making sure it's nice and clear. We've got 523 times 8. Now in producing, I think it was one of the previous questions, I had to re-video myself doing this one because I wrote the question out wrongly. I put an incorrect number in the question because I wasn't concentrating enough. So it goes to show that those mistakes can creep in. I answered it all properly and then realised at the end. So we must make sure that the question is written correctly. 8 times 523. So we're going to do 8 times 3, 8 times 2, 8 times 5. And that will give us our answer. So let's go through the process. So 8 times 3 is 24. So we put the 4 in, carry the 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Add the 2 is 18. So again, we would put the 8 in, and carry the 1. And then finally we have 8 times 5 is 40, add the 1 is 41. So the 1 would go in, we would carry the 4. There's no 8 times anything. Arguably you could say 8 times 0 is 0, and so the 4 is just going to remain and drop down. So our answer becomes 4,184. And again, if we had an answer box, that would be dropped in. But hopefully you're going to see this and think, wow, that's pretty straightforward. And the SATs questions that we're going to go on to next are relatively simple. And from skimming through the SATs papers, there aren't that many of these, and a lot of them you can just solve with partition and jotting. So again, this is a good opportunity for you to pause the video and have a go. So if you need to do that now. Otherwise, I'm just going to drop straight into these and just solve them nice and quickly. So again, 2 times 45, we would be having 45 times 2. And again, ideally, we would just know that this is 90. Okay, or we could see that 2 times 40 is 80. You know, a little partition and jot. 2 times 40 is 80. 2 times 5 equals 10. And we can just see that that's 90. But if you wanted to go through the process, that's fine. So we would do 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8. Add the 1 is 9. So very quickly, we get to that either way. Ideally, we just know that 2 times 45 is 90 and we move on. So again, we don't always need to drop into a column strategy. Quite often we'll know the answer. Again, the difference here is that the numbers are presented a different way around. 23 times 6. We're not going to do anything different. We're going to have 23 as the larger number above 23. And we're going to multiply that by 6. So again, 3 times 6 is 18, or 6 times 3 is 18. So we put the 8, carry the 1. 6 times 2 is 12, add the 1 is 13. So we've got the 3, carry the 1, there's nothing else to do, so that drops down. Very simply, that needs to get transferred into the answer box, and 138 is our answer. So again, with this question, I wouldn't suggest many of us would want to do this mentally. And again, probably the most effective strategy is to just drop into a grid method and get it answered straight away. So 65 times 8. And again, we're just utilising our 8, 5 and 6 times table. So 8 times 5 is 40. Dead simple. Carry the 4. 8 times 6 is 48. Add the 4 is 52. So carry, there's nothing else to do, and the 5 would drop down. We'd then transfer that into the answer box, and we'd have 520. Now this one is very like one of the examples that I did before. So again, we've got a 3-digit number multiplied by 3, and again, I would just expect us to confidently drop into this question. So 391 times 3. Now again, the key here is now we're working with 3 numbers or 3 digits, is that presentation is important. We're going to end up clogging up these areas, so we must concentrate and make sure that we carry out the calculations we want to. 3 times 1 is 3, very simple. 3 times 9 is 27, so we're going to put the 7 in, carry the 2. 3 times 3 is 9, add the 2 is 11. So, and the 1 just drops down. So we end up with 1173. And that's hopefully how we get our mark. And the final SATs example, 9 times 752. And these are the only SATs examples that I could find. I would definitely suggest with this one we do a short multiplication. And the key of knowing it's a short multiplication right at the end of the video is that we're just multiplying by 1 digit. Okay, if we've got 2 digits here, then that would be a long multiplication because there's another step. So anything multiplied by a single digit is just a short multiplication grid method. So again with this, by all means pause the video, but if we time this, even though it seems like quite a complex question, it's probably going to take 15 seconds to solve. 752 times 9. So 9 times 2 is 18, carry the 1. 9 times 5 is 45, add the 1 is 46. 9 times 7 is 63. Add the 4 is 67. And the 6 is going to drop down. So again, just with a little bit of concentration and good presentation and using our multiplication fact, we can solve a question like this really quickly. And that brings us to the point where it's over to you guys to get some practice done. There aren't really any more examples to give. All of the questions that we looked at are pretty much over the past 5 years, all of the short multiplication questions that there are. So there aren't that many. There tends to be more of the long multiplication, which we'll look at next week or the week after, I think. But yeah, these are very simple. I would expect with these ones, you could be dropping quite quickly into a partition and jot using your known facts like last week. But again, very easily, the whole point of this week is to practice short multiplication. So get your ruler out, draw your line, present the question and answer it effectively using your multiplication fact. Again, these are probably about as difficult as you will get. You've got an extra digit where you're multiplying by a 3-digit number. So here we've got 1 digit by 2 digit. Here we've got 1 digit by 3 digit. And that is the key. Short multiplication is when we multiply by 1 digit. And also, just here, look at the difference between these questions and these questions. The only difference is the 2-digit number is presented on either side of the multiplication symbol. And again, this might happen just to throw you and you think, oh, how do I present that? You just present them exactly the same way. Okay, multiplication can be done either way. So you've got 38 times 4, or 4 times 38. The answer's the same. Okay, 9 times 283, or 283 times 9. The answer's just the same. Okay? So again, don't get thrown, and that's why I've provided some of these examples, so you just go into automatically laying the question out as we've looked at in my examples and the SATs examples. So good luck, get this practice done, and we'll move on to some more complex problems next week as well. So well done. Another really straightforward strategy covered there in terms of the grid method and short multiplication, using our multiplication facts to solve multiplication questions. Now again, as I said at the start and throughout the video, we can shift between using our known facts and our ability to partition and jot to solve those problems. But if we're not feeling as confident, or we'd like to rely on a more formal written strategy, then we can always drop into the grid method as well. And that will help us lay out the question effectively, solve the problem, get the mark, and move on. Okay, so that is what this week was all about. Again, this strategy and every other strategy that you're going to need is covered in SATs Like a Ninja. So get your hands on a copy of that if you want. It covers everything to do with arithmetic, reasoning, reading, and SPAG. So it covers the whole range of the SATs papers and enables you to be super successful. But other than that, that is this week's session finished. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. You'll see that around somewhere on the video. Like the videos and leave us comments, and most of all, tell other people about this series. We really want to help as many pupils as possible be successful with their SATs through the videos. So the more people that know about them, the more people can watch them, and the more children can be successful at SATs. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in week 6.